Welcome today to this next session on our Business Spotlight interview series. And today I'd like to welcome Andrew Holding from Happia. So welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks, Bill.
All right. Andrew, maybe if you could just start out by telling us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been in business for.
Yeah, so here at Happia Apps, we solve problems. So I've always been a problem solver, and we do that primarily by creating custom apps and software for organizations, and more recently, some generalized software to solve problems.
Okay. And what sort of problems are you solving?
So, for instance, we work a bit in the disability and aged care space.
Okay.
So some of the problems we solve there is getting the critical information into the hands of support workers in a way that keeps that information confidential and safe. So, for instance, it's a lot more common for staff members to use their own phone when working. So that poses some risks and challenges. And a lot of the software that's out there isn't really up to that. So we've built some solutions which can deliver that information in a way that can't be exported, downloaded, tampered with, and is limited to just what they need. But it really is important stuff. So, for instance, if they need to call an ambulance, they've got all of the individual's information that they need, and they don't have to go and find it. And they're not carrying that in a paper form that can get lost or damaged or anything like that. So that's a bit of an example. Yeah,
and I guess, with all the recent activity around cyber security becoming even more important in today's environment.
Yeah, and it's really important, and that's why. So, for instance, that solution, we built that on Microsoft's platform because the organisation was already on Microsoft 365 and was operating quite securely. So, by keeping it within that platform, yes, we were able to keep all those safeguards. So not all solutions end up on the Microsoft platform, but that was definitely first and foremost for security and privacy.
Yeah. And how long have you been in business for?
So I started in 2018, but I was a little bit more of an IT generalist and consultant. And in the last couple of years, we've changed focus into building solutions, partly because a lot of the problems we were trying to solve when consulting with different organizations, we just couldn't find the right solution. And so I came across methods of building and adapting software and integrating that was working well. So we decided to focus on it.
Okay, fantastic. In terms then of who would be an ideal client for you then? What particular industries would make your ideal clients?
Yeah, so it really comes down to organizations that want to do what they do really well, but they might be struggling with a couple of things. They might be struggling with a workforce that's suddenly become very mobile, or perhaps is as we're all experienced in the last few years, is suddenly working from home. Or they might be required to do more with less. So, for instance, in the disability sector, there's a lot that they have to do to maintain compliance, and they need to be agile and be able to adapt and change, but they need to keep their costs low. So we can help with things like automation and apps that can scale up easy, and tapping into cloud platforms where the cost has come down significantly over the last few years.
Right, yeah. And Andrew, having started the business in 2018, not long after that, we went into, I guess, what we call the pandemic.
Yeah.
What impact did that have on you at that point in time?
The main thing it did initially was shift my focus to really helping my clients get through that, the transition to having everybody work from home, because that happens so quick. And thankfully, I've had a lot of experience with that. So I've previous to starting my own business, I managed larger teams that were spread across Australia and into Asia. And so I was very used to working with teams that were on different time zones, very spread apart, maybe never met. And so you learn a lot of things the hard way. And so I was able to help organizations get through. It wasn't always pain-free, but really smooth out some of that stuff and just support individuals, help people feel connected. So during that period, I was offering a lot of support, technical, but also how do we keep teams engaged? How do we make sure everybody's okay? That sort of thing.
Yes.
And doing that over digital media. So it doesn't come naturally to most of us.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess that's just a great example of how the pandemic has actually helped, even new businesses.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So pre-pandemic, I was often sort of trying to be a little bit of an evangelist for working from home, because I saw the benefit that it had to a lot of organizations and a lot of teams, and some flexibility, not just all working from home, but the flexibility that it work is, it's more something you do. It's not necessarily where you are in a lot of professions. But 2020 really just kind of forced organizations to give it a try. And I've spoken to CEOs that they were all against working from home, and then after a while they really kind of had a different view. They found that some people just really thrived. They were more productive, they were happier, and most have found that their staff members want a bit of a mixture. Even when everyone's allowed to go back, they like a little bit of a mixture.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I think that's one of the key changes that we're seeing, probably even right around the globe in that respect, is that working arrangements, that'll be one of the things that sticks from the pandemic.
Yeah.
So in that time of, since you did start the business then, Andrew, what's been the biggest learning that you've had since that time?
I think one of the biggest learnings was to it's okay to focus and really know what you're going to say no to. So working in IT, especially around support organizations and things like that, you become a real generalist. Yes. And you need to be across a lot of things. But coming into the business, I found that that can dilute what you do if you're not careful. And without a proper focus, you run the risk of trying to do everything and doing them okay, but sometimes it's better to do one thing really well. And that's where we've really had to regroup and work out what it is we're going to do well. And that's a bit of a process, and it can be quite difficult, especially if you've established different products and services and the like. Yep. So early on, I would suggest just have a think about what you do, but also have a think about what you don't do. Right,
absolutely. Look, I couldn't agree more with that. So it sounds like you've gone through a process to say, what are we actually going to niche and tailor our business towards? Is that correct?
That's really correct. So, early on we were offering everything, because I came from IT organizations that did kind of offer everything, but they had teams doing all this stuff. And so I was used to the fact that, you could provide phones and you could provide internet and you could provide support. And I was used to all of that. So I just continued on with that in my own business. But each one of those things requires time and energy and focus. And I wasn't feeling like I was giving really great value in any one of those areas. It was good value, but I wanted to do better. And so actually, we sort of went away, my wife and I, who works in the business, and we put aside some time to really talk about where can we have the biggest impact, and what have we found in the last little while that we enjoy doing, so that we can keep the energy for it, but it has a really good impact. And it really came down to this custom solution and pre-built solutions that can be built quickly and deployed securely and quickly to solve some of the smaller or more painful problems and some of the larger problems. But what I've noticed in the last few years, which has really pushed me in this direction, is some of this stuff, if you go back a few years, you needed to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars and have vast teams to deploy infrastructure and run up the software and manage the life cycle and the like. But some of the awesome changes that we've seen around no-code and low-code solutions and cloud-based infrastructure, we can deploy smaller solutions in a few weeks to a high standard for a lot less. And you can get something up and running on the ground that evolves, and you can do that quickly. And that was just not available to like smaller or local businesses in the past. It just wasn't, but now it is. And so like we really enjoy bringing that to people and showing them what's possible.
Yeah, well, congratulations on getting to where you've got to.
Yeah, thanks.
So what did taking all that into account then, what have you actually learned about yourself through these processes and journey?
Yeah, so I've learned that one of the things I already knew, but I've really learned it, is that I'm not afraid to jump in and learn new things and have a real go at it. But it comes with a bit of a dark side, because you can get caught doing too many things, because you're willing to jump into this, but then you're also willing to jump into that, and you're also willing to jump into this. And where does that end? So you've really got to learn to set some boundaries around what you're going to take on, what you're going to skill up in, and make sure it's the right things.
So it sounds a little bit like the bright, shiny object syndrome.
It can be. So I always need people around me that get me back on to the main focus.
Yeah.
It's not all bad, because without that, I wouldn't be able to spot these opportunities that are coming along in the tech space. But you can't. You want to know a lot about them, but you can't master them all. That's what I'm learning.
I guess that sort of takes me into the Superman cape syndrome then. That's where you try to do everything yourself. So in terms of that, then, as the business has been developing, evolving and growing, what do you see as being the next challenges and the future for your business?
Yeah, so we've seen a bit of a need where some of the solutions that we develop, not necessarily for an organization, but we see a problem and we want to fix it. We're seeing a bit of a need to build tools and software that can be more broadly sold. So using things like software as a service. So we're looking at that. We're currently developing a tool called Checker, which is all about keeping people on task, allowing people to quickly gather information, quickly manage processes and the like, without it being a big onerous task to set up. Like, have it be quick to sign up, quick to deploy, quick to get people on board, and quick to get running, but make the process enjoyable. One of the things that's core to us at Happia is that whatever we make should be enjoyable to use. So, and that's not always easy, because it takes a lot of effort and design and iterations to make something enjoyable to use. But so that's the goal. So the challenge, I guess, is learning how to take what we normally do for a project space for a specific client, and to be able to go, here's some tools that are available to everybody, and evolve those over time.
Yeah, really interesting, Andrew. So where do you get your inspiration from to come up with these types of solutions?
Sometimes it's our own pain that we hit. So if we take Checker, for example, I've worked in big and small organizations, and like to use a specific example, I've had over the years time where you send somebody a list of questions that you really need the answer to, and so you ask 3 questions and they answer 2, and the last one is kind of, well, did they just not want to answer it, or what is it? So Checker, one use case for Checker is being able to quickly fire up a list of 3 questions, shoot it to that person specifically, and then it's easy for them to answer, but it's clear that you need a response on all those items, and it's audited, and there's a little bit of structure there. So that's like still a work in progress, and it's probably going to be early next year that we release that. We're sort of just taking people onto the wait list now. But that's an example of a pain point that I've had for years. And then finally we kind of went, well, why don't we address that? And then we thought, well, actually maybe other people need it. And it's kind of evolved, you know, something that Anita, my wife, needs is the ability to quickly run up just quick dot point checklists to be able to give to somebody. And they need to be able to do that over and over again. And so this tool allows it. So a lot of it's our own experience. A lot of it as well is just talking with people and customers that are experiencing things, and they may not have the time or budget to create a solution themselves. So sometimes that's a good idea to put on the ideas list that might.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a really terrific service that you're providing, and it sounds quite innovative as well.
Yeah, I've always been sort of one of the ones who kind of looks for new ways to do things wherever I work, and I've been blessed to have bosses that over decades have pushed me and championed that. It's not any one person. I've had strings of managers and CEOs that really liked that, and so I kind of always felt like I've had this little bit of freedom to go, well, that might be a good solution, and have a play and do some proof of concept and see if it works. Not everything works. Sometimes you try kiss a lot of frogs, but
that was going to be my next question: is how much R&D do you actually? Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. How much time do you devote to R&D in terms of finding these solutions?
That's a really good question, and you asked what challenges we're facing, and that is one of the challenges. So one of the things I'm learning is you have to get your first version built very quickly and not be too attached to it, and try and get some feedback. And it's hard because you've got this balance between getting something that is good enough to get a realistic view of whether it works, but quick and dirty enough so that it is not a right solution that you can put it to one side. I think the key is getting something that's that addresses the core very quickly, and then evolving that a little bit. And we've seen that with client solutions as well. So we've developed, say, a mobile app for a client on the Microsoft platform, and it's very simple because they only needed one thing. But in people using it, then the ideas start to come and the requests start to come and it evolves. So getting that first thing is crucial.
Fantastic. So, Andrea, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that keep you focused on doing the right things every day?
That's a really good question. I don't know about quotes, but I have a really good wife who is basically like my coach as well.
Yep.
She just she spots the signs of when I'm unfocused, and she's awesome to talk to. She keeps me on track. I'll have to think about the quote thing and get back to you. Most of the quotes I know are not very inspirational, and you probably don't want to share them on there.
Fair enough. All right. So, final question then. What would you say to anybody that's thinking about going into business?
I would talk to them about what it is they're trying to achieve and why they want to go into business in the first place. I think it's good to know what you want out of it. So, for instance, for something like we do, stepping out of the corporate world and doing your own thing you don't necessarily do that because you want to make a lot more money, because you're probably not going to, not for a long time. But it may be that you want the freedom to work on the things that you think are important, or it might be that you want the flexibility to work different hours. You're probably not going to work less hours, but to work different hours. But I would also talk to them about what is it that you're going to be willing to say no to. And it's so hard when you start, because you can feel you need to say yes to everything. So I'd probably talk to them about what is it that if this opportunity comes along, are you willing to say no to that? And why?
And often having that ability to say no, even being able to say no. I think
Yes.
that is a big thing in business, because quite often you can get too distracted. You know, you might be having a cash flow challenge at a point in time. So, well, okay, if we did take that on, that's going to help with cash flow a bit, but is it really steering the business in the direction that we actually want to take it? So I think that, you know, what you're offering, Andrew, is great advice for anybody that is considering going into business. So be clear on your goals, and I would add in there, be clear on your personal goals. Why are you actually doing this thing? And then resist the temptation to diverge if it's not going to be in the right path.
Yeah, I think that's really good. One thing that I've found really helps with that is if you do have a bit of a network and you have people who do the things that you're saying no to, it's good to be a referrer. If you really, you know, if you really trust those people that do that thing. So I'm fortunate to have that situation. There's a lot of people around here that I've worked with in different roles that do one of the things that I say no to, and they do it really well. And so you can introduce people, and then you're still adding value and they're still getting a good result, but you have said no to that piece of work that might have been a distraction or a drain.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Andrew. So for anybody that may be watching this interview series and have a need to any app developments or other software developments that's going to help them leverage their time, they'll systemize part of what they're doing. Andrew Holding at Happia is the man to come and talk to. So thank you again for your time, Andrew. I've really enjoyed this interview today. It certainly has opened my horizon, and I'm thinking, you know, just how I might be able to refer some people to you as well. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.